Hello, beauties. Welcome back to Midlife by Human Design. Today's episode is one of possibility, I guess. I hope that you leave listening to this episode with a sense of possibility. It is the end of August as I'm recording this, and that means for many of us who are mothers, college drop-off season and or transition season when your kids are headed back to school. And we dropped off my son this past weekend, and he is a sophomore now in college. And my experience was that it wasn't as dramatic as the last couple of years, but it hit me in a very different way. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that as our kids are getting older and we are experiencing these transitions differently each year and what that can potentially open up for us. Because obviously sending your child off to school is this both and situation. It's beautiful and it's also heartbreaking. And for me, the sadness this time didn't come at drop off itself. I was actually fine helping him unpack, get his room set up, doing all the things. It was great to feel useful, like I was needed, like I was being helpful. And then even driving home, like I felt fine about that. And it wasn't actually until the next day when it was me being faced with his empty room and picking up the small little pieces of things that he decided not to bring with him and putting those in his room. And I just spent a lot of the day feeling that absence very, very acutely. And also my heart was just heavy. And I have to admit that it was really hard to be with those feelings. And I found myself in this cycle of resisting them and wanting to disassociate. So I would pick up my phone. I laid down at one point to try to take a nap and just feeling this need to escape and real resistance, and then come back to just okay, I just have to be here. I just have to be present. I just have to keep taking one step, putting one foot in front of the other, and feeling this heaviness in my chest and feeling this emptiness that I'm feeling. And my youngest son was working, so he wasn't here either. And so it really felt very empty, very quiet. And I just had to be with it. So first of all, if you are in this same season and experiencing these same things, I am sending you big love. And I want to remind you that episode 118 of Midlife by Human Design helps you to feel the feels, gives you specific strategies for feeling the feels. And I also want to direct you to episode 75, Mom and Collie, which is an episode all about college drop-off and the experience of making it through this transition. And today's episode is more about the experience of what comes next, I guess. And for me, this quiet experience yesterday, and it really kind of felt like I was in a vacuum where, having two sons who are relatively close in age coming and going on the regular all throughout the summer. And when one wasn't here, maybe the other was, or vice versa. And there was some degree of action going on in the household. And now it's like it just comes to an abrupt halt. And it is pretty abrupt, even when you've spent a couple of days or the week preparing, packing up things, getting things ready for the college kid to depart. It's still, once they're gone, for me, I'm not being interrupted by lacrosse balls hitting the garage with wall ball, and I'm not seeing as many of my eggs disappear from the refrigerator, and I'm not having to pick up wet underwear in the laundry room from cold plunges. Those things that were happening on a very regular basis just stop immediately. And it leaves this sense of emptiness. And I can be excited for him and also heartbroken. And I can be feeling like this is exactly as it's meant to be. This is just a phase of life. And I don't like it, right? I did not like that heavy feeling. And today feels a little bit better because I'm back into my routine. I have things that I need to do around the house. I can be focused. It feels a little bit better to me, but I know that I will still be experiencing those moments of heaviness as the weeks and months unfold. And I found myself thinking more and more about the future yesterday and about what it will look like even next summer if he will be coming back, or if maybe he will be doing an internship somewhere, or out of the country even, doing a semester abroad or something like that. Who knows? But the fact of the matter is that each of these transitions, each of these drop-offs is one step further into them growing up, them becoming their own people and living their own lives. And as a mother, I'm getting emotional. As a mother, we have to think about ourselves at this point, and all of these little steps of transitions of like slowly letting our children go to become their young adult selves forces us to look into the mirror and think about the different roles that we have played in our lives so far. The main one being mom. And to assess what happens when that role changes and we don't have something immediately to backfill it. And obviously for me, in my case, I still have one son here at the house, and you may be in that same position. This may be a few years out for you. This may be a few years in the rear view for you. But whatever the case may be, if you're in this kind of transition period, then you may have found yourself becoming really, really good at being needed. And speaking from experience, Cancer Sun, Cancer Moon, like definitely a very sensitive mama, I know that I am learning how to set up my son to be more independent. And I also still get sucked in when he asks for help because I still want to feel needed and I still want to feel relevant. And so when I was thinking about this future and him with each passing day, week, month, year, becoming his own person and building his own life, the question becomes, what kind of relationship do I want to have with my young adult son that's not based so much on need, that he needs me to help him with things or, show him how to do things or whatever, but more so that it's a young adult to adult kind of relationship. And how do I craft that? And how do I shift my own self-identity from being a need-based kind of role to one of support and occasional advisor when he wants me to be. And the other question that comes back around, kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier with this role being shed, or it's not that you stop becoming a mom, but it's a different type of mothering, right? And that backfilling. So when you're backfilling, I think the question that you should be asking is, what do you need? What is it that you need at this point? This new version of you that you are becoming, what does she need? What does the wild woman in you need? And how can you start giving yourself permission to experience that little by little in those 1-degree pivots on the daily? And of course, this is where human design can be a tool for you. So who are you underneath that role of mother? Look at your type, your energy type. Are you a generator type, generator or manifesting generator? Are you a projector? Are you a reflector? Are you a manifester? And what does that tell you about yourself? And how can you use that information in this next phase? So if you're a generator type, how can you be asking yourself right now, what lights me up? What gets my sacral going? When do I feel this huge flush of energy take over me and I want to really lean in? Because you're being gifted with time, right? All of that emptiness is the return of time to you. And so how are you going to use it? Look at your authority. Have your authority reposition itself as your best friend throughout this next phase, throughout this transition time, because it is going to help you decide on those next steps. And if you're emotional authority, take your time. Really feel through all those feels. Go back to that episode 118 and listen to it a few times to learn how to feel the feels, because those will help you to carry forward in your decisions. And I mean, I was definitely in an emotional low yesterday, and it was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable. I did not like it. And I also reminded myself that it was temporary, and I knew it wasn't going to last forever. And I know that it's going to come back, but I also know that I have some tools to use to process those feelings, to move those feelings through. So remember that your human design is a tool for experimenting for yourself. And when you're feeling unmoored, when you're feeling untethered, human design can be so helpful to just give you this map that says, hey, have you thought about this? Hey, do you remember this about yourself? And get curious. You don't have to know exactly who this next phase of you is. You don't have to know what that version looks like in every single aspect of who she is. Maybe you're going to see aspects of your childhood returning to you. Think about, what did you love to do when you were little? What did you spend time doing when you were young? Maybe it's reminders of who you were just before you had children or decided to have children. Like, what were you doing then? This is where this return of time to you is such a gift, because you get to come back to those things that you put up on a shelf, that you put into the background and kind of said, oh, that time in my life is over. Well, maybe it's not. Maybe it was just on pause for you to raise your kids, and now you have the opportunity. And I can already hear some of you being like, oh, well, I'll never do that again because blah, blah, blah. Maybe it was some athletic thing that you were doing. You were racing in races, and you feel like you'll never get back to that. And here's where I want to call bullshit on that, because if it's something that you really want, it will never miss you. So be careful about the stories that you're telling yourself when you are coming back to those things that you did when you were younger. Where are you putting up roadblocks where they don't necessarily need to exist? And I really challenge you to get curious about that. Like, where am I saying, no, I could never do that? When in fact you could, it just might take a lot of work. And so the question then becomes not that you can't do it, but maybe that you don't want to. And that's okay too. But it's important for you to use your authority and your strategy, of course, to figure out if it's right for you or not. Don't just write it off because it feels impossible right now. My 3140 is coming in hot here to help you believe in your dreams and help you understand that they're absolutely possible, because anything is possible. We are living in the quantum. So ask yourself, what sounds interesting to me? What are some, who knows, maybe some TV shows that you're drawn to recently? What is it about them that you really like? What books are you drawn to? What is it about them that you really like? What activities? Maybe open up the newspaper and look in the calendar and see what things are running near you. And anything that pulls you in, get curious about it. Even if you decide not to commit to do it right away, just take note of it. Be like, oh, okay, that is drawing me in. I wonder if maybe that may be part of this next version of me. Because anything that is pulling you toward it has something there for you. Okay, I can't record this episode this week without talking at least a little bit about the astrology, because there's a lot happening in the sky this week that is setting us up to usher in this next version of ourselves. And that is the eclipse. And we've got Mercury moving into Virgo, which I'll talk about in a second. So first thing is the eclipse in Pisces that happens on Friday. It is a lunar eclipse and it is a north node eclipse. Both of those things are important when we think about what's going on here in this whole reinvention component. So first thing I would suggest you do is go look to see where Pisces is in your chart. Run it on my website, lorileeside.com. Just make sure you toggle to the astrology chart versus the human design chart. And right now it's set to Placidus, so you're going to see houses that are not evenly split up, like a whole sign house or an equal sign house system, but it tends to be a little bit more accurate for you. If you want a whole sign chart where all of the houses are equal, you can go to astroseek.com and run your chart. So this eclipse is the final eclipse of the Virgo Pisces eclipses, because eclipses always happen on the axis. So if you look at Pisces, you see right across the wheel is Virgo. So these two signs work in tandem, they're opposites, and when eclipses happen, they happen in opposite signs. And so this one is finishing out this 18-month cycle of eclipses, and it is a lunar eclipse, a full moon eclipse, and it is happening in the north node. So that means that whatever is happening in this eclipse, which happens on Friday, the 28th, is happening in service to your trajectory. Whatever path that you are on in this lifetime, this eclipse is either setting a new beginning or, more likely than not, some sort of ending, some sort of wrap up that is in service to your next move. And obviously, it's like this transition period already with kids going back to school and you getting curious about what does that mean for you? Who are you now? And the other thing that is happening during this eclipse portal is that the sun is squaring Uranus, and therefore the eclipse is squaring Uranus. And Uranus is all about unpredictability. It's like the crazy aunt Flo in your birth chart, essentially. The one who just like comes out with zingers at the table. She's got no filter. She is a bit of a wild woman herself. And Uranus is going to bring a flavor of unpredictability. And I feel like sometimes with astrology, it can get very like doomsday and very like, oh, God, is this like horrible? What could happen? Blah, blah, blah. And listen, sometimes shit happens. And plus also, sometimes Uranus brings really wonderful plot twists. Usually it's some kind of plot twist. So what I want you to consider this week, or I invite you to consider, is what kind of good plot twist could come into your life during this week. And look at where Pisces sits in your chart. What house is it in? And what kind of welcome change could happen during this week as it pertains to that house and the themes of those houses? And just being open to imagining a really positive thing coming into your life in order to help you reinvent yourself during this reinvention period. And then we have Mercury also moving into Virgo. So the sun is in Virgo now. It just came in over the weekend. And now we have Mercury moving in on Tuesday, the 25th. So Mercury is going to make a cazimi to the sun. Just means they're conjunct. Mercury is conjunct the sun. I think it's the same exact day as the Pisces eclipse. And so being that it's also squaring Uranus, this tells me like, you know, your filter may definitely not be working very well on Friday. And plus also, are there some things that you have maybe not wanted to ask? Are there some questions you've maybe been unwilling to ask, or some answers that you've maybe been unwilling to hear that potentially this eclipse could crack things open for you? Like, maybe you have really been wanting to travel and you just haven't seen how it's going to happen, or you've been feeling like all of these constraints around it, and then something happens to open that up, to just like crack it open this week. Or maybe you have a book inside of you that needs to be written and you keep getting this hit that it's time to write the book. And with this Mercury cazimi, it might get really loud. You might start hearing it from unexpected places. Maybe you are hearing something like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. And the this in that sentence is up to your definition, right? Like, what is it about your life that you can't do anymore, that you feel like you're at the end of your rope and you need a change? Because Uranus comes along and says, okay, cool. And guess what? You can surprise even yourself. Or maybe we're going to throw in a plot twist that surprises you, and you wake up on Friday or you learn something on Friday that completely changes your view about where you were really stuck before. And this is where reinvention happens. And sometimes I think about when I was teaching, and I think about these times during the year when something would come back around, because it always worked in cycles, and something would come back around where we would need to recreate something. So for example, over the summer, you look at your handbook and you rewrite the handbook. And it's in those mundane tasks, it's in those things that come back around for review that give you the opportunity to exact change, for real change to take root, for this reinvention to actually start happening. So is there anything happening this week that maybe feels a little mundane? Maybe it's how you pay your bills at the end of the month, or maybe it's the workout program that you've started and you're keeping track in a tracker and you're making notes and something new occurs to you. Or maybe it's your journaling practice and you're finding that you are discovering some things that came out during a writing session that were totally and completely unexpected. This is a place for you to make real change. It's like these tiny little opportunities can look really mundane. They can look like just like another task. And if you're not aware, if you're not self-aware, they absolutely can become just another task. Using the handbook example, if you're looking at a handbook and you're just skimming it for spelling errors or context or that kind of thing, but you're not really paying attention to the content and what it means in a classroom, or what it means in student lives, or what it means in teacher lives and the day-to-day, then you're missing a huge opportunity to literally rewrite rules. So, you know me, I say, fuck the rules, burn the handbook. Use your own human design to help lead you and guide you. And as you're going through this reinvention process, what are some of the things in your life that you're just sort of doing because they feel rote, or they feel like they've become part of your routine? So I'm just going to keep doing them. Where can you start questioning those? Where can you get curious about what they're actually doing for you? And use this opportunity, use this week of like clearing out and endings and beginnings and plot twists. Use this to like shake you out of that routine and get curious about like, okay, I'm gonna like sit in these feels of like heavy heart and feeling like really awful and very, very sad. I'm just gonna sit here and be with that and let the wisdom of those feels enter into my being and crack open this new version of me. Who do I get to be in this next phase? And again, you don't have to know the answer to that. Especially this week, I feel like maybe some of those answers are going to start to make themselves known, but it might still be unclear for a while. Who knows? Maybe it's super clear and you know exactly what this next version of you is going to be. But if you don't, there's no pressure. There's a reminder here of the 1-degree pivots and of taking advantage of the opportunities instead of letting them pass you by. And let's talk about human design and how I can support you, which you know that I do human design sessions. And this kind of thing gives you a mirror for understanding your energy. And working with someone like myself gives you the opportunity to bounce your ideas off of, to raise your awareness around your chart and what that says for you specifically, and to get unstuck wherever you have failed to give yourself permission to do something or to be someone that you really want to be. Now is the time for you to do that. And with my undefined G center, I am so good at seeing your possibility in pointing it out. And my gate 34 just wants to give you all of the energy to make it a reality. My 4130 here with the fantasy channel wants to help you bring those dreams into reality. So I will leave a link in the show notes. I'm going to add a link to book a call if you would like to book a call, if you're not sure if you just want a session or if you want to work longer term, what that looks like. I'm happy to get on a 15-minute chat to determine what is going on with you and how can I support you. So that's what I have for you today. I am wishing you the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, especially this week with the eclipse. Joy to fill your days and clarity to be who you came here to be. And of course, if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, please follow the show, like it, give me a review. That would be amazing. And if you are following along on YouTube, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you know any mamas who are launching birds, please send this to them, help support them with this podcast. And I also have some bird launcher journal prompts if you are interested in those. They are journals to help you connect back with yourself and process some of these really deep feels that we as mothers are feeling in late August. If you want those, just send me a DM on social and I will shoot those along to you. All right. Thanks so much for listening. Till next week.